Guardians starting pitching, they have found a groove. The offense, they might want to call Stella. We'll talk about where the answers for the Guardians offense are and aren't coming from on today's Locked On Guardians.
Tanner Bybee of the Guardians, and you're listening to Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into a Monday morning. It is unfortunately a therapy episode of Locked On Guardians. This is a safe place for you. This is a safe place. We promise. It's okay. Let your frustrations out and just sit back, relax. We're going to talk through it. It's going to be okay. This is Locked On Guardians. It is our favorite half hour of the week every day. We hope it's yours too, because it's where we talk about the Cleveland Guardians every day of the week. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team, your Guardians. Every day, going from the majors to the minors and the draft and everything in between, of course. My name is Justin Latta. You can promise you're safe with me. I have been covering the Guardians minor league system since 2007. You can find all of my minor league analysis on the farm system at Next Year in Cleveland on Substack, as well as the Morning Journal and the News Herald. And here 5 days a week with my co-host, Jeff Ellis.
I recently found out I was not subscribed to your Substack, so can I give a special shout out saying if you want a quick hit of all the how guys did over the night, go check out and subscribe to Justin Substack.
Wow, that's why I didn't call you a friend.
I hadn't realized it. I wasn't subscribed. I wasn't getting the daily emails. I'm like, why am I not? And I realized I apparently messed up. Much like I forget to unmute, I forgot to click subscribe. I am Jeff Ellis, for those who do not know me. I was one of the first people Locked On reached out to when they decided that they needed to have someone down here to talk about baseball. I'm also Locked On's draft expert, and that was what my role was as a writer at Scouting 24/7 nationally. I want to thank you for making today's podcast your first listen today, every day, wherever it is you get podcasts. For me, it's on Pocket Casts. And in addition, I want a big shout out to all of our everydayers, especially those of you who are managing to stay sane and not be, let's just say our comment section has turned into knee-jerk city. We have got a lot to talk about. It was an interesting weekend. The funny thing I was telling Justin about this is for all the people talking this, that, and the other thing, Cleveland had the most base runners this past weekend. They just unfortunately weren't always able to turn it into something. But we got games to talk about.
We do have a lot to talk about today. We're going to talk about we're going to do a little pulse check on where things stand for the Guardians and where things are headed, where things have been so far, and how things can shape up in the future. We'll get to that later on. We'll talk about the offense, whether this is another bad streak or if this is the start of some alarming signs for them. We're going to start, though, with the starting pitching. It has once again become the backbone of the Guardians' performance. And that's a good thing. So we'll talk about why that is a good thing here in just a moment. Before we get started, you should know that today's episode of Locked On Guardians is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase so they can be your friends too and send you to some fun sporting events at a discount. All right, Jeff. First of all, everybody listening, back off the ledge. It's June 9th as you're listening to this. Lots of season left. There are under 100 games left in the season. We did pass that threshold. That's one of I hate that time of year, to be honest. I hate when they get past game 62 because I'm like, oh, now they're down to double digits in games left. I know there's 98 games left, but I don't know. I hate that time of year because then I can just see the sand is kind of running through the hourglass. But there's a lot of sand left in terms of baseball season and games. And I will say, I said this last week, and I'm going to say it again because we're going to talk about the offense today. It's frustrating to lose the games they did this weekend. It was frustrating the way they lost to the Yankees. It's frustrating when you don't score because you got to score to win, and everybody wants to score runs. That's, the long ball, and runs are still sexy in baseball. The majority, I don't know, don't like starting pitching or don't like low-scoring games. But for a Guardians team that at the very best right now might be a streaky offense and has some holes in the lineup, without a doubt, if you don't have good starting pitching, things are going to be very ugly. We saw that early in the year. Well, guess what? The starting pitching, it has come around. Tanner Bybee has found it again. This was another good start by him on Sunday. The last two starts for him, the only mistakes he didn't really make a mistake at all on Sunday, truthfully. He had two bleeders that really hurt him, and then it wasn't a strike three call that was missed because it wasn't a strike, but that pitch, that cutter on the outside corner, had been called a strike to Cam Smith throughout the day. So I think Tanner expected that to continue to be a strike, and that's fair. If you're going to call it one way, call it that way all game, even though umpires are still struggling out there. But Tanner was good once again. The mechanical tweaks he's made to kind of fix being more in line with the plate, the pitch mix, the sequencing has all been figured out. It looks like, at least for now, he'll probably have to continue to tweak that. But he's using his whole arsenal. He's throwing strikes. He's being efficient. I didn't even realize what inning it was. Like I looked up and it was like the 7th inning, and he was like 80 something pitches. I was like, wow, I didn't even realize it was the 7th inning because I just saw the 80 something pitches. So Tanner's looking really good in terms of that. Gavin was great again Saturday. He pitched really well. Outside of a couple batters, he deserved to win that game. Logan was not great Friday, but he wasn't terrible either. We'll see what Luis Ortiz does his next time through, but I'm really encouraged where the starting pitching is going. If you're gonna continue to have this kind of offensive ineptitude, and it may not matter because the offense may not give you enough runs, but Tanner at least did the thing on Sunday you need. That's an ace to step up and stop the bleeding, give you a chance to win. He did more than that, and they won, and that's good. I feel better about having chances to win games as long as the starting pitching keeps this up.
Yeah, and of course, then on Sunday, what was it? It was Bo Naylor hitting against a lefty, just like we all said all year. It's just, it's going
everything
into
makes sense or not.
Yeah, well, it's like going into the weekend. I mean, our comments and my Twitter were filled with negativity for Gabby. Gabby arguably had the best weekend, most consistent weekend of anyone
outside of Jose. Yeah,
outside of Jose. It's a wonderful world of baseball, but yeah, it was a frustrating series, and I think because they were close in all of them, they had a chance. A little bit less. It got a little bit away on Friday, but still only a 4-2 game. And I mean, they on Saturday, like the biggest problem was they had 6 hits, and 5 of them were with 2 dudes. So they had 8 walks, so they had a ton of base runners in that game, and they just could not get anything together. And I think the biggest problem right now with this lineup is that some of the holes are gaping. It's one thing if you have a guy who's not great, but it's like they have several guys who are just borderline unplayable, and some of them are hitting at the top of the lineup. So we'll talk about that in segment 2. But I agree with you. Tanner was fantastic. Gavin was solid. Logan Allen, it's been a while since his last start. It could have been a lot worse. And then
I will say Logan got a little unlucky Friday because there was that fly ball to right field, and got a little unlucky. And they had the outfield shifted to left field. They didn't expect, I think that was Paredes who hit the pop up to right field. I forget who it was, but they weren't expecting him to pop up to right field, and he did. And Jones just didn't get there, and 2 runs scored.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. Like that 5th inning. Now I'm going back to my now. That 5th inning was everything, because it was like, okay, so we have a bad defender out there. He can't get to the ball. 2 run score. It was Paredes. Go back to the next inning. Cleveland lines things up. It's the exact same thing, except for they have Melton, who makes that amazing play in the corner. Like otherwise, Cleveland scores 2 runs and it's a tie game, and who knows what happens. Like the 5th inning is the decider. Like the 5th inning was, our guy is not a good defender. They're playing across. He couldn't make up for it. Melton makes an amazing play. It literally came down to a ball hit in the same spot for both teams. And that was really the difference in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. And they had chances to win, and I know that's frustrating, and that may be a theme that continues throughout the year. That may be who they are. We'll talk more about who they are in the 3rd segment, and if this team has found a direction, or if we can clearly identify who or what this team is. I'm not really sure we can, but we'll talk about that more in the 3rd segment. But it is much easier to figure out where runs come from or how you're going to score enough runs to win the game when you're only allowing 3 or 4 runs a game. They allowed 11 runs this weekend to the Astros, and that's 3 per game. You can win a lot of games. The magic number is 4. Maybe getting 4 runs might be hard sometimes for this team, but it's a lot easier to figure out when you're not being blown out. Like the last blowout I can think of was them in Philadelphia. The Tarek Skubal game in Detroit, the 11:30 game got away from them because it was Tarek Skubal. But they haven't really been blown out of a game in a while. They've been in every game probably for a month now. It's just going to be about plugging some holes in the lineup, and if they can actually do that. But the starting pitching's in a good spot. That's at least a good starting point. We'll talk about where the offense comes from next, if this is a streaky bad streak, or if this is a sign of trouble, and the Guardians are going to have a hard time correcting that next on today's Locked On Guardians.
But first, let me do a dramatic pull in. Oh, what is it? It is our friends at Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. This is my favorite here. It is the jalapeno lime. I love lime. I like jalapeno. What is there not to like? And here is why I love this particular product. I am a snacker. I get hungry throughout the day. If you go and you get junk food, you know what it doesn't do? Fill you up. So you eat too much of it. When you grab something like Wonderful Pistachios, you are going to get not just protein, but protein is more filling. So getting that protein will help you fill up and will cut back on the snacking and just help you do a better job with that snacking. I could just show you the back and you can see all of the great things in Wonderful Pistachios, but let's be honest, the most important thing, it tastes delicious. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Today's episode is also brought to you by Epicor. Every team knows the value of hard work, of taking pride in what you build, and practicing every detail to get the best results. But no one player, no matter how amazing, even if they're me, can do it alone. Working together makes getting the win easier. At Epicor, the all-stars are the hardworking manufacturers and distributors who create and deliver the things we all need, from aerospace to electrical to medical devices. Epicor ERP solutions are created by industry experts to help make every day easier. Seeing your whole supply chain? Easier. Managing logistics? You got it. Easier. Responding to price changes? Easier. From small businesses with big dreams to growing enterprises with global vision, they'll equip you with the right tools to move forward, think ahead, and learn why. Because as the clock ticks down, you need to make the most of every hardworking minute. We all want ways to use our time more effectively and better, and that's what Epicor is going to help you do. Easier doesn't cut corners, easier takes the lead. Discover your success at www.easierwithepicor.com. That's www.easierwithepicor.com.
The Reds come to town for the battle for the Ohio Cup starting on Monday. And it's hard to tell what the offense is going to look like for the Guardians in that series because they're facing a lot of left-handed pitching, and everyone keeps saying the Guardians can't hit lefties. I saw the Astros originally had Lance McCullers lined up for that start.
Yep.
They pulled him to give him an extra day of rest, and they called up a lefty who most of us never heard of before, and he pitched
Major
actually
League
pretty
debut.
well. Was it his Major League debut?
That's what I thought I heard on the radio.
Oh, maybe. I don't think it was, but that's okay. Either way. Everyone thought, it's the Astros. They just want to throw a lefty against the Guardians because they're struggling. The Astros were looking ahead to giving McCullers more time off because he's coming back from basically not having pitched in 2 years. So I don't really necessarily see that as a calculated move in terms of, we're just going to throw a lefty. They were planning ahead for that. But the Reds, they do have 3 lefties on the docket this week. And the Guardians, they don't have a whole lot of answers for that right now because they kept trying to throw John Kenzie Noel out there, and now he's back in AAA. I joked on Twitter on Saturday night. I said, well, there's 3 lefties coming to town this week, so we're going to see a lot of Noel. And then about an hour, I had to walk that back because we found out he was being sent to AAA for Jonathan Rodriguez. So the question really is for this team, given the last couple of games. We've seen the offense do some good things. We've seen them do some bad things. I don't know if they're in the middle of a bad streak right now or if we really need to be concerned. I don't think as a whole you can really evaluate the entire offense and say, well, they're bad or they're good. I think it's more, the guys who you're going to be able to count on, and you have the other guys who are trying to figure it out, right? Like Kyle Manzaro right now, Noel's one thing. I think this is overdue for Noel to go back to AAA.
Worst hitter in baseball. Just plain and simple. He's been the worst hitter in baseball since September of last year. Worst hitter in baseball this year, minimum 50 plate appearances. Overdue.
Yeah. Going back to August last year, he didn't hit a home run until he hit the game-tying home run against the Yankees in the ALCS. Like he went a whole month and a half without a home run last year. And you and I, where everyone was getting, I don't want to take a victory lap over Noel struggling because I don't take any joy in it because A, I like the guy, and B, he can be a fun player when things are going well. But the red flags in his profile, you and I were looking at, were like, okay, this is either going to be a guy who's a complete unicorn again, or it's not going to work out. And it's, the glass slipper stopped fitting, right? He became SpongeBob 2.0, and now he's back in AAA. And
Google
I don't
literally
know.
said, see also Oscar Gonzalez when I looked up John Kenzie's name today. See also Oscar Gonzalez.
Yeah, I don't know whether a trip to AAA is really going to fix Noel because it's an approach issue, and those are the hardest things to figure out. Like, yeah, it'd be better for him to play every day and try to rebuild some confidence, do some things, but at the same time, like guys just don't change their approach. We've talked about this before on the show. If you've listened to us for any amount of time, you know that when you're looking at guys, your approach is your approach. It's a very hard thing to change. I'm not saying it can happen, but it often does not happen. And I don't think Rodriguez is going to be the answer either. Like I know he had a hit on Sunday, that's great. They've worked with Rodriguez on getting his swing to be a little bit shorter, but he's a guy who chases a lot of junk too. He can't hit off speed stuff usually. He might be able to passive at times as well. Like it's probably a profile that's as tricky as Noel's, and he also is a worse defender than Noel, except for his arm. And he might play 3 games this week because they're playing lefties, and that's fine. But Nolan Jones isn't unplayable against lefties. I would just rather let Nolan Jones play against lefties at this point, or if you want, put him in center field against lefties and start Rodriguez and right, which is what we were saying about Noel. That's fine, but I don't think it's going to be the answer either. The answer is, like I talked about on Friday, Kwan's OPS when the Guardians win is over 900. When they lose, it's below 500. So they need Kwan to get on. They need Jose to be Jose, which luckily he is. Manzardo has disappeared since that hot start. So thank God Santana has heated up, but you essentially have 3 guys in the lineup right now, and then you have one guy who's made a 4th guy, right? Like it's Kwan most days, it's Jose every day, it's Santana most days, and then it's generally like a Schneemann or an Arias or a Naylor who gets hot for like a week or 4 or 5 games, and they go back into the tank, and sometimes somebody else emerges, sometimes somebody else doesn't. And I don't know if getting a 4th guy hot for a week and rotating that in and out is going to really fix this offense. I know it's not going to fix the offense, Jeff. And it is not playing Will Wilson against every right-hander just because you want a platoon advantage.
You only get a platoon advantage if it's a major league player. Will Wilson is not a major league player.
It's only a platoon advantage if the guy excels. Like Brandon Guyer crushed left-handers, so
Yes.
It was a platoon advantage because it worked. You can't just say, well, he's a right-handed hitter against a left-handed pitcher. Like some guys have reverse platoon splits. Some guys just have the inability to play at the major league level. That's great. Will Wilson got the bunt down on Sunday, and the Astros made a mistake and gave him a free run. That's great. They would have won, 3-2 instead of 4-2 if that didn't happen. But you can't be playing Will Wilson as much as they are. Like I'm not even blaming Will Wilson. Like it's more of he shouldn't be there. You're putting guys in spots that they shouldn't be in. That's not helping you. And the vote conversation, I know there's a lot of discourse about Stephen Vogt out there on Twitter and in the comments and on YouTube and all that stuff. We'll get to that later in the week. There's a bigger conversation about that thing than we can really have today. But yeah, I don't think Rodriguez is the answer. They really need Manzardo to be good again. They gotta stop playing Will Wilson. I mean, Schneemann and Jones just play against lefties, and then you could pinch hit Fry later in the game if you have to, because he's the only guy. Yeah. But he's been struggling against lefties since he came back. His home run came off a right-hander
since May 1st. Like just to give you an idea, so like since May 1st, Jose is an OPS over 1. Santana's is 864. Kwan is down at 731. It has been a struggle for him since May. Like 731 is fine, but that's not the all-star level we kind of need him to be at. David Fry at 694 since his return. Next up, Bo Naylor at 684 because he's had some power in the last month. Then you go down to Nolan Jones at 650, Schneemann at 623 since he cooled off. All the way down here, 566. Manzardo's at a 182 batting average, only a 325 slug. Like he's not doing anything. Next is Gabby Arias at a 535. He had a good weekend to help bring that up. Wilson at 523. Then here's the big one that no one wants to talk about. Angel Martinez isn't working anymore. He's at a 469 OPS, a 159 batting average, a 186 on base, a 283 slug. Like I appreciate. I mean, the metrics actually don't love his defense. I think he's doing a fine job out there, but like Martinez is such a hot and cold hitter. Everyone's ready to bury Gabby. It's like I kind of I brought up this on Friday. It's like Gabby has his own sets of issues, but like they have
defense is not one of them.
No, and they have a lot of other holes. I think we have to come back and still talk about hitting a little bit before we get into segment 3 here, just because of there's still a lot to talk about.
There is, yeah. We got to figure out. I mean, again, you have a lot of streaky guys in this lineup, and Are they just streaky hitters? Is there more there? Are they going to have to try to figure out what more is there? I don't know. We'll have to talk about that in the next segment and whether or not this is a streaky offense, not just who these guys are, or if they're just some growing pains. We'll get into all that next on today's Locked On Guardians. If you want to get to a sporting event, a baseball game, it's summer. The weather agrees in Cleveland for now, at least. Maybe you suddenly want to go to a game this week. Tito's back in town with the Reds. The weather should be good most of the week. Should be a fun series. That is where Game Time can help you if you haven't really made the decision whether or not you want to go. Game Time is the easiest way for you to grab last-minute tickets without stress. It helps you save money so you can go to the ballpark and buy one of those adult beverages you might want, or maybe some fun food. There's good food options at the ballpark. Or if you want to bring some extra friends, Game Time helps you do all of those things. They make it fast and simple. And of course, the prices drop the closer things get to first pitch, so you can count on that as well as things like viewing your seat before you go and the lowest priced guarantee. I always do the all-in pricing, so I know what I'm paying before I go to the ballpark. I'd use Game Time for Guardians games. I've used it for concert tickets. I've used it for comedy shows, basketball games. It does everything for you, and it makes it so much easier. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time today. Download the app, create an account. You're going to use our code LOCKEDONMLB, and you're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create the account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB to get $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. I don't know if it's obviously not guaranteed for the Guardians offense to snap out of this, but it is a very streaky lineup, as we were talking about before, right? It's Gabby Arias has the tools to be a good hitter, right? He hits the ball hard. I will say I was encouraged on Sunday for him hitting the ball the opposite field. Like
yes,
early in the year, you and I were talking about like how he's pulling the ball more, and I was like, that's good, but like his natural power in his swing comes to the opposite field. The more I see that, the happier I am. But he's a streaky hitter because he doesn't always chase the best pitches. And Bo Naylor is a streaky hitter, as we've seen. Angel Martinez is a streaky hitter, and a lot of it has to do with their approach. I don't know if a lineup full of these streaky hitters can really do what you want. The good idea is, like, it worked last year because, like, Quan was hot, right? And then he got hurt. Tyler Freeman got hot, and then he didn't do anything after that. But, like, everybody in the lineup last year, like David Fry was hot at one point. They had a lot of guys last year who all took turns kind of just, like, stepping up. This year, they haven't had as many guys. Like, this year, it's been the Jose show since May.
Angel had it when he debuted.
Yeah, right. And that's what I'm saying. Angel was hot. Bo Naylor has a good few games here and there. Gabby Arias has like a good week or so. It's just it's a lineup full of those guys. Like, I don't know if you can sustain a whole offense with all those guys. And the problem is there's a lot of young guys who have this issue who are streaky, but Manzardo's still trying to figure it out. Angel's still trying to figure it out. I just don't know if you can sustain on offense for a full season with guys like that because they're developing. So we don't really know what the final product is, but what we know so far is they're streaky, and that makes it hard to predict how the offense is going to churn from one way or one day or 1 week to the next.
Few points here. I'm just going to jump in, handle a few things here. One with Gabby Arias is I was doing a lot of look at him on Friday. He's actually hitting only 2 percentage points lower in terms of opposite field. The big thing for him, though, is he started hitting to dead center, and that's always been an issue for him. Is his swing needs to be either pull or opposite field. And he hits these stretches where he goes right into center, and it's a negative for him. So it was a big thing to see him going opposite field and then also pulling at points. So it's like he's got to avoid those two. Two, I think, plantar fasciitis is one of those things we never know how long it's going to be, but it sounds like Lane Thomas is coming back. That's a player I couldn't think of before the show where I'm like, they also mentioned medical reports and getting close. When Lane Thomas comes back, I think he sets the team up well if he can, I just want him to be league average, which the guy just hasn't been healthy all year. But if he can get to league average, you could have a very beautiful platoon, a gorgeous platoon with Jones and Martinez. Like that could be a situation where you have like a Rayburn-esque situation for those who have not paid a ton of attention. Angel Martinez is, I know we can ignore this weekend, but he has been killing lefties throughout the year for the most part. This weekend, we didn't see it as much. He's in a big scuffle. We'll have to figure out, what his role is. But we also can't keep him at the top of the lineup just because he's fast. Like, I think they're very slow to evolve. And then basically they move a guy up right at the end of a hot streak, and then they keep him there through the coldest part of his streak has been the approach this year. So they have to be a little more flexible as a team. I mean, you and I have talked about it. At some point, I think close to the All-Star break, you really have to start. Now, people were going to be like, why not before that? We've kind of talked about it, and I know you'll talk about maybe a bit more tomorrow. It's like maybe you start looking at Kefis at the first base area if Manzardo can't, it was really interesting listening to a lot of away games because every away game host is like Manzardo swinging out of his shoes. Like he just looks like a kid up there trying to hit everything a million miles an hour. They need him just to slow it down. Like that's not the hitter he was that they acquired when they acquired him. That's not the hitter that made him successful. And I don't know how you work back with it or what you do. I'm sure we'll see Rocchio at some point. I don't know if it's sustainable for Rocchio, but it's really interesting that he's doubled his launch angle in AAA. Like maybe there's little things you can work with all of these guys. I mean, I'm not exactly sitting here saying Rocchio is going to be answer because I don't believe that either. Honestly, you're hoping for a Brito, and you and I have talked off air. It's like I think they should trade for Amed Rosario. Honestly, I do. They need, he would be a platoon candidate. He would be a million times better than Will Wilson. Let's just be very honest there.
That's not hard.
No, it's not. But I think it's making those small changes around the corners, figuring out how you can upgrade because they are going to be
the margins. Yes,
it's going to be
to improve on the margins.
Yeah, because it's going to be harder. Because there's just not a ton of sellers. Like, let's be very honest. There's not like the Washington Nationals will move a guy like Amed because he's a free agent at the end of the year. Who cares? But that allows you to. That's a relatively big upgrade, and it takes a position that some days is an absolute black hole where you're getting nothing out of that you get something out of. And I think that's what they have to do is find those ways to improve, and then not be afraid to make the hard call. If Manzardo stays in this scuffle for even halfway into June, then it's more than a scuffle because he spent more of the season being bad than good, and you have to adjust.
Yeah. Well, I'll talk more about prospects. I'm going to host a solo show tomorrow. Jeff's going to host a solo show on Tuesday. I'll host a solo show Tuesday. Jeff will host a solo show Wednesday. And I'll talk more tomorrow about prospects and calling them up and why they're not doing that. And just overall minor league evaluation, some issues that are going on there. But yeah, you're right. Making that call, it might be difficult. They will find some issues creating a 40-man spot because there's been so much movement. Like, we got good news on Bieber, but his rehab clock has to restart now. But everything was good. They checked
Brennan's
out well
go on the 40-man, right? Like that's at least
a 60. Yeah, Brennan can go on the 60. That's open, but they moved Walters to 60 so they could bring up Dom Nunez because Austin Hedges has a concussion. But hopefully, when he recovers, you can use that spot on somebody. All that kind of stuff. Yeah, I don't know. It's
if you trade for bad, you're cutting Will Wilson. So there you go.
There is that. Yeah, I think we can have a larger conversation this week or next about some trade targets if that happens. Yeah. Like I saw a tweet on Sunday night that the Pirates were getting interest in IKF. That's a guy we could talk about certainly. That's interesting. I think the real question is we have a lot of time to spend on it today, but I think the real question I wanted to ask is where are you at? Because the Guardians are technically, as we wake up on Monday morning, out of a playoff spot, and the offense is struggling. They're half game out of a playoff spot. This is the first time all year they've been out of a playoff spot. I don't know. Like I've been saying all year, like, oh, they're this record above 500, and they haven't played their best baseball yet. And I kept saying, well, when things turn, if things turn, that's a really good sign because they're hanging in there when things aren't going their way and they're not playing their best. But we're June 9th. The starting pitching has come to a good spot where I trust them for the most part. I think they're going to get better when Bieber gets back. He will come back, but it might be more July than June. Like, it's pushed back at least a week or two. But I think we have to prepare for the fact that, like, maybe they'll turn things around and be better, but you get to prepare for the fact that, like, they may not play better. This may be who they are. Like, they might just be inconsistent this year, and the offense may struggle.
I do want to throw a counterpoint, two of them actually, to that one. This was a brutal schedule. Like, there was only one. They're half game out after going through the roughest the schedule is going to be all year. And the other one is, I know we all are sitting here like, man, this offense is bad. Since May 1st, when things kind of turned on them, this is the 20th best offense in baseball by WRC plus and by WAR. So for as bad as it is, there's teams behind them like the Cardinals, the Padres, the Royals, all teams with postseason aspirations. In terms of home runs, they are 20th in baseball since May 1st. Like it's not a great offense. In terms of runs scored since May 1st, they are 20th in baseball. Like they are a bottom third offense, but they're the top of that bottom third. This is not a sky is falling. They're a bottom 3 team in baseball. This is not 2023 when they were a bottom 3 team in baseball by just about every metric. They're upper third. They're in the 20s. And I was looking on the course of this year, they are like 16th against right-handed pitching with a 102 WRC plus, which for those who don't know, it basically takes everything and boils down 100 is average. They're 73 against lefties. They are stinking up against lefties. They're bottom 4. That is their weakness right now. That is their kryptonite. That is not having Fry most of the year. That is not having Lane Thomas most of the year. That is taking a lot out of their lineup. Hopefully they can get healthy. But for all of these struggles, it was a brutal schedule. They're half a game out of the top wild card. All 3 teams have identical records ahead of them. So they are right on the cusp. And then the second part being the offense isn't quite as bad as you think. That's just kind of baseball nowadays is some of the ups and downs with it all. And in spite of, we just talked about, there's only been 3 guys since May 1st who have actually hit. They still have the bottom 10 offense, but it's the 10th worst, not the worst. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's coming from 3 guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. The schedule's been tough. You've had Houston, you've had Detroit, you've had LA, the Dodgers, had the Yankees. The schedule in the second half should be easier. Hopefully guys will get healthy and come back. Lane Thomas, David Fry gets his footing under him. You get Juan Burrito up here, hopefully. At some point, you'll probably see Chase DeLauder. We'll talk about that tomorrow. You might see Kafis. So, like, there are things coming. You could make some trades. So there are things that could be coming to help reinforcement-wise, but it's also relying on health and guys getting back to their averages. We'll see if they can do that or not. I fear for Thomas just because it's been a choppy season for him and it's hard to catch up, but we'll see. But there are still some positive signs or some positive things to look at going forward that could help this team out. So yeah, don't fall off the ledge just yet. I don't think the season is anywhere close to over. This team has not shown us who they are yet because there's still a lot of moving pieces and parts. It's June 9th.
Comments disagree with you.
I know. Look, I'm telling you, by August 9th, things will be different. Now, things will be different, either good, they'll be different, bad. I don't know which one it'll be, but there's still a lot of time left, and there's still a lot of moving parts on this team. All right, I'll be with you tomorrow on a solo show. We'll talk about the battle for the Ohio Cup. The Guardians have to sweep to keep the most important trophy in baseball. So we'll talk about game 1 against the Reds tomorrow. We'll talk about minor league evaluations and promotions and why guys aren't getting called up and kind of some things to look for every time you want someone to be called up.
Thank you all for joining us. Remember to rate and review, download daily. Put a comment below. Which prospect would you like Justin to talk about? Or on my show, what draft prospect would you like me to talk about? Thank you all, and go Guardians, go.